Our first hire was our CFO, Gise. And because we had a very clear name, Gut, and we were about a brave agency for brave clients, we couldn't take any client. So we said a lot of no's in the first year. I counted. We said 27 no's. And every no that we said, Gise would.
Hello, welcome to In the Making with me, Simon Cook. I'm the Chief Executive of Lions, and we run Cannes Lions, the International Festival of Creativity. It's the world's largest community of marketers, agencies, platforms, media owners, and many more. All of them looking to drive progress through creativity, whether that be on a personal level, for business impact, or to create positive change. We're here to delve into the most inspirational, the sharpest, and the most Lion awarded minds in the creative marketing industry right now. We want to understand what inspires them creatively, how their backgrounds have shaped their careers, and also to hear about the breakthroughs, the blunders, and everything in between, and what we can learn from that. Each episode, we ask our guests to bring 5 pieces of work that help them bring their story to life. From early influences, to the work they wish they'd made, to the work that's still very much in the making. At Cannes Lions this year, Anselmo Ramos, who is the co-founder of Gut, made history when Gut won Independent Network of the Year, Independent Agency of the Year, and Agency of the Year. In 2023, they took home an impressive haul of 35 Lions, including 3 Grand Prix. In 2013, he opened David with his business partner Gaston and won several Grand Prix and experienced great success. 5 years later, in Cannes, he quit and persuaded Gaston to jump ship with him to open their very first agency together, Gut. In this episode, we talk everything from meltdowns to manifestation to mindset, or more specifically, how to develop a winning mindset for Lions, but also for life.
The first time I met Gaston, right? Gaston was the regional creative director for Ogilvy. So he was kind of my boss, dotted line.
Right.
And so we met in Cannes for the first time.
Okay.
Everything happens in Cannes, Simon. He basically tried to fire me.
No.
He said, listen, Ogilvy Brazil is really bad. And, so, the global leadership told me that I have to fire you.
He told you that?
Yeah.
How did you win him over?
I started to cry because I had just moved to Brazil after 12 years abroad,
Wow.
And I told him, man, I just got here. I need some time to change this.
Yeah.
I have a wife and 2 daughters. Why are you doing this? I was really upset, And then, we just said, okay, so let's talk again, like in 2 weeks, And then 2 weeks later, he comes to Brazil. He goes to my office. I wasn't there. I was in a meeting. And he's waiting for me. And then he looks at my bookshelf. And he sees all my annuals. So I come and I sit in front of him. And he looks at me and he says, someone that has so many advertising books cannot be that bad.
That bad?
Yeah.
How much did that chance mean to you?
It was amazing, man. It was amazing because then I was like, I had a mission to prove everyone wrong. Him and the global leadership that were questioning me. And that motivates the hell out of me.
So look, on In the Making podcast, we are going to be asking you for 5 pieces of work, 5 pieces of work specifically that have inspired and shaped who you are today. And I'll just give you the rundown. First piece we want to get into is the kind of work that made you want to get into advertising or to be a creative. And then we're going to talk about the work that you wish you'd made yourself. And then we'll move on to the work that nearly didn't get made, that nearly didn't see the light of day. And we'll get into that. And then also the work that made you. And I think most importantly, and this is very much in line with your manifesting habit, the work that you plan to make next.
Cool.
But to kick us off, tell us a little bit more about Sao Paulo growing up, your influences, the type of advertising that inspired you. What was it that led you to this career in the first place?
I just like to draw from a very early stage. I would just draw things or write things and show it to people. And for me, when someone would look at my drawing or writing and say, "Oh, Samuel, that's so creative," that was everything for me. My mom, during a period of my, teenage years, she got rid of TV, in my house. So for many, many years, I didn't have TV. But so I would go to my friends' houses to watch TV. I would watch like amazing commercials, commercials from, Washington Oliveto and Zanguanais and Fabio Fernandes and Marcelo Serpa. And, at that time in Brazil, these people were rock stars. Everyone would know them. My mom would know who Washington Oliveto was, who Nizam was. Nobody knows who I am now. But back in the day, in Brazil, everyone knew like the ad people. They're like, it's like madmen. It was crazy.
I want to take you back to earlier this year in June. And I'm going to start by reading you an email that actually Cannes Lions sent to you. It was on June 22nd, 2023. It reads, "Dear Anselmo and Gaston, your business partner.
Yep.
All the judging results are currently being verified by our integrity partners at PricewaterhouseCoopers. All parties will receive their results tomorrow. We appreciate your patience while we follow this essential protocol." You replied, "Thank you so much. We are praying to the advertising gods here." At that time, what was going through your head? How are you feeling?
Oh my God, you were trying to get Gaston patient? Like, that's impossible. We were freaking out. We were very excited, very curious about, the official results because we thought that we had a shot. So we were very anxious.
So when I finally called you the next day, Gaston picked up.
"Hi, Simon, this is Gaston. How are you, mate?"
We were all together in the house,
right,
at the gut house.
"Quite nervous at this moment, my friend."
And I told him that Guts, 5 years in, had won Independent Network of the Year.
Yeah.
Agency of the Year.
Okay.
And it was very emotional. We cried and we hugged each other and we all jumped in the pool. And the thing is, we were in the middle of a client meeting. So when you called us, we were presenting. We had a presentation to Kraft Heinz. So we had 20 clients from Kraft Heinz globally, and they basically watched all that happening in real time. Your call, and we just jumped in the pool in the middle of the meeting. Simon, you made the best call of our lives. So it was very emotional. It was the most emotional day of my career. Wow. And I've been working in this business for 30 years. So yeah, that was a big deal.
And I just want to rewind for a minute. In January 2020, if you think back to that time, you posted a tweet and it was titled, "My Next Decade."
Yeah.
And it outlined all of the major milestones and accolades that you wanted to achieve in the run up to 2030. So many things on there, but under 2023, what had you written?
So yeah, that was 2020, and I posted without asking anyone.
Yeah.
I posted that in 2023, I would love to be Independent Agents of the Year. And of course, when I do that, people give me shit, right? God, they're like, "Anselmo, why are you doing this? Why are you creating all these problems, right? Like, why are you posting everything?" But, I don't care. It's a weird technique that I have. I just post it publicly, and that makes me accountable because now I need to deliver on it. Otherwise, I'm going to look really stupid. As you know, I believe in The Secret, right?
What is The Secret?
The Secret is a book. It's very cheesy and it's very badly written,
right? But
the message is amazing, okay? The message is basically the universe is dumb and the universe will just give you what you think about. It's really about the law of attraction. So whoever you are right now, whatever you have in your life, it's a result of your thoughts. So you attract what you think about. That's basically the book.
We're going to talk about the work you wish you'd made.
Yeah.
So I want to set the scene a little bit. We want to cast our minds back to the early 90s, 1992, in the UK. And at that time, ads were very slick. They were very well scripted. There were perhaps bigger budgets. And then something came out of nowhere, a piece of work made by Trevor Robinson, OBE.
Mm-hmm.
Something that literally slapped the nation across the face.
Yeah.
Tell us about your next piece.
Yeah, I was starting my career in Brazil. I couldn't speak English, I could barely speak English. And I saw Orange Man, Tango.
Oh, yes, we could be in for a quintessential tango taste sensation here. Why, yes, Tony, let's look again.
They created something that got viral, even before viral was a thing.
Yeah.
Like all the kids in England started to do that in the playgrounds.
Got banned in my school, yeah.
Yeah, and then it got banned, then they had to do a version with a kiss, without the slap. But even like the execution, the casting, the Orange Man, the way he walks and the way he taps on the kid's shoulder and then he turns around and they slap with the two hands. I was like, oh my God, advertising can do this? But I've always admired British advertising and US advertising, like a lot, especially because of the annuals. And yeah, so it was always a dream. Okay, one day I can maybe work there, right? And that's why when I was 24, I left Brazil. I went to Lisbon. That was my first experience working abroad, YNR Lisbon.
And when you landed in Lisbon, that recognition that we all seek, that you seek, landed in the form of your first Lion win.
So my first Lion was for Telecel. It was a telco in Portugal. It's basically like a shepherd, and the shepherd, he's out in the fields with a lot of sheep, and he gets a phone call. It's like one of those big, flip phones. He gets the call, and he answers the call, and he says like, Toshin.
Toshin?
This, it's like a unusual way to answer, right?
Yeah.
Toshin. And then he turns around to the sheep and tells the sheep, it's for me. And then he answers the call. That's the joke. Okay, it's very stupid. But at that time, in 1995, he got a silver lion, like a silver on film. So I was 24, and that's when I tasted the blood. I was 1 year in Lisbon, 3 years in Madrid, and then 8 years in the US.
Right.
When I returned to Brazil, that was 2007. It was my first time leading a big agency like Ogilvy Brazil. I think it was like 600 people. I had 100 creatives. I was really nervous because I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah, the beginning was very hard. And then I started to work even harder. And
what did that mean for you, working really hard?
There was a time that my wife was dropping me off at Ogilvy, and my daughter, she was 4, and she was like in the car seat in the back. So my wife drops me off at Ogilvy, and my daughter says, Dad, is this your house?
No.
Is this where you live? And
how did that feel?
I almost cried, but at that time, I was just like obsessed about changing that culture, and go from number 47 to number 1. And we did that. We got to number 1 after 4 years.
Do you regret that sacrifice, or do you see it as necessary?
I think it was necessary. I think it was the only way.
And, if that wasn't enough pressure, the pressure that you put on yourself by promising one of your clients a Grand Prix.
Yeah, that was a stupid thing to do.
Well, there's a theme
Never
here, isn't
do
there,
that.
Anselmo? The manifesting.
I know.
So tell us, perhaps for those who are less familiar, what was the piece of work that we're talking about here? And ultimately, this is the piece that almost didn't get made.
Yeah, that's Real Beauty Sketches, right? I think it is still the piece of work that I'm the most proud about. you know, it's because of the whole story around it. So I met Fernando Machado. He was heading Unilever globally together with Steve Miles. I was in Cannes dancing. I was in the middle of the dance floor, okay? And Erica Hoholik, she was leading Ogilvy globally at Ogilvy. So she taps on my shoulder and she's like, I want to introduce you to a client. I'm like, Erica, I'm dancing here. I just want some lions. Let me have some fun. I don't want to talk to any clients. 2 a.m. I'm dancing. And she's like, this one is special. I think you should talk to him. I'm like, okay, Erica, whatever. And then, I met Fernando. It was like 2 minutes. And he said, hey, I love your work. Nice to meet you. So let's talk. I would love to maybe talk about Dove. A couple of weeks later, he invites me to come to London and talk to the Dove team. And I asked him, can I be honest about what I think about the brand? And he said, go all in. Just tell us what you think. I'm like, okay.
Full permission.
Yeah. So I came here and I told the global Dove team what I thought about the brand. At that time, Dove wasn't doing great work, so I basically told them, listen, I don't think the work's great. The last great thing the brand did was evolution 10 years ago. And you have the kind of brand that you should be winning a Grand Prix every year. So I said that, right? Big mistake. And then a couple of weeks later, Fernando called me and he said, okay, you came here, you provoked us. You said that we should be winning a Grand Prix every year. Here's a brief for you.
Right.
I won a Grand Prix. And I was super worried, right? I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do now. And the brief was amazing.
What was the brief?
The brief was very simple. And that's the first lesson. It was just one line. It was based on a piece of data, which says only 4% of women consider themselves beautiful. It's really sad, right? So the brief was, let's make women feel more beautiful. That's it.
Great brief.
So simple, right? So I was desperate. I called the whole creative department, 100 people, and I briefed everyone. I said, listen, I just promised a global client a Grand Prix. I saw like hundreds of ideas. And then we selected 3. Our very first meeting with Dove, we presented 3 ideas to Steve and Fernando. And one of the ideas was Real Beauty Sketches.
Tell me about your chin.
It kind of protrudes a little bit, especially when I smile.
We invite some women to come, right? And we'll ask them to self-describe themselves to a sketch artist, to an FBI sketch artist. And the artist wouldn't see them, would just hear them, right? And he would draw the self-description. And then we'll ask a stranger that met the women briefly to describe the same women to the sketch artist. And then he'll draw it again.
She had nice eyes. They lit up when she spoke.
Cute nose.
She had blue eyes, very nice blue eyes.
So it's basically a comparison between 2 drawings.
So here we are. This is the sketch that you helped me create. And that's a sketch that somebody described of you.
So yeah, that's...
The premise was we thought that the description by a stranger would be just nicer, that the women would be hard on themselves. But that was just, what we thought. And the only way to really find out is by doing it.
She looks closed off and fatter, sadder too. The second one looks more open, friendly, and happy.
So this particular piece of work picked up multiple Lions Grand Prix, dominated the show in that year. We like to do our homework here on In the Making.
Yeah.
We have spoken to a few people who have been influential in your career. You mentioned Fernando. Let's hear from him about what he thought about that pitch.
Okay, cool.
You haven't heard this before.
I'm curious.
Steve and I, the two clients, like we need to ask like the stupid questions, right? I mean, the clients ask. We knew it was nuclear and beautiful, but like we ask things like, but Anselmo, how do you know that the sketches will be different? You know, like the self-description will be different than the sketch when someone else describes you. And he looked at us and he said, well, I don't know if they will be. And then we look at each other and then, okay, so how do you know that when the women see the sketches, even if they are different, that they will have a reaction? And Anselmo thought about it and looked at us on the video conference and said, well, like, I don't know if they will have a reaction. Like, it's hard to tell, but we think they will, but can't guarantee. And then we look at each other, and then we ask another question. We ask something like, but Anselmo, like, are there even like FBI trained sketch artists these days? Because I imagine it's all done on computer. So like, if we need to find someone that does that, we will even be able to find someone who does that. And Anselmo thought for a second, and he said, well, that's a good point. Like, I'm really not sure. I don't know if they are. And I think at that moment, something magical happened among all of us, Hugo and Diego, Anselmo, everyone, Veronica, who was the producer, me, Steve, Erica, who was our account person. We all looked at each other and said, you know what? It. Let's do it.
I mean, a lot of clients would have asked those tricky questions and gone, do you know what? Nah, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
What was it about looking around that room and catching the whites of people's eyes and seeing a glimmer of something exciting that made them ultimately forget the uncertainty and go with it?
Yeah, that was a beautiful message. What he described is exactly what happened in the call. They were basically asking questions and I didn't have the answers. I was just saying, I don't know. I don't know. The only way for us to know is by actually doing it, right? And I told them, listen, it's Dove. It's a big brand. You know, you have money. You can afford producing this as a social experiment and see what happens. If it works, great. You know, use it. If it doesn't work, what's the big deal? And they were brave enough to understand that. And the biggest lesson for me is embrace uncertainty, right? Because when you know exactly what you are doing, then it's usually not a good thing because it means that you've done that before.
The good thing about talking to Fernando about that particular pitch is that he told me something else that happened that day, which was you presented 3 ideas.
Yes.
The first was picked up. It's now very famous. It did very well. There was another idea that never saw the light of day. It was called Real Beauty Inspires.
Yes.
Are you able to tell us about that? This piece that never ran?
Yeah, it was a piece of work about how real women inspired some beautiful pieces of work, like a song or a poem, you know? So it was like the real women, the real beauty behind those pieces of work. Like example, the girl from Ipanema, the song. So we would show that girl and, you know, the real beauty of her. And we had some other examples, but basically was like a song, a poem, and the real women behind the inspiration. And it was beautiful. It was like real beauty inspires. So yeah, Dove, if you're listening to this, you should produce that piece of work.
It's there somewhere in a vault. We just need to take it out.
Yeah.
So in 2013, you're on a high. You've received that recognition on the global stage. You're having a huge moment. But what was happening behind the scenes? Because in order to get to that, you're working a lot. It's intense. You've built this amazing partnership with Fernando.
Yeah.
Is it immediately on to the next thing?
Yeah. At that point, Gaston and I and Musa, at that point, we decided to start something, you know. It was just too big, you know, what was happening and what happened in Cannes, Artist of the Year, you know, and we said, okay, what's next? And then we had this idea of starting a company, right? And the idea was David. We had 3 offices, Miami, Sao Paulo, and Buenos Aires, and we grew to 150 people in a couple of years. It was great training ground. We started David Sao Paulo first and David Buenos Aires, right? And after a couple of years, I wanted to move to London, and to open David London. So I actually came here and I found a place for the agency in Shoreditch.
Okay.
And I had a school for my daughters, okay, a Rudolf Steiner school. It was like all ready to go. It was always my dream, to work in London. So I was here, right? And then Fernando, he asked me, what are you doing in London? And I'm like, I'm opening David London. And he said, well, let's have dinner tonight. I'm like, sure. And then, in the middle of the dinner, he tells me, I need to tell you something. I'm going to Burger King, right? And I'm like, that's amazing, man. I'm so happy for you. Good for you. Go have fun. By the way, I'm working for Burger King. I'm already working for Burger King, in Brazil and also in the US, doing some projects for the US market. And he said, yes, I know. Why are you coming to London? You should open in Miami. And I was like, man, can you please call Camila, my wife, and tell her? Because this is going to be.
When you think about those sliding doors moments, if you hadn't have had that dinner with Fernando and you did come to London, how different would things be now?
I don't know, man. I've always had this dream of coming to London one day.
Will you come to London one day?
Oh, I will. It's not a matter of if, it's when. I mean, God, London will happen. But yeah, I love the country, and I love, the history of British advertising. And I'd love to be part of it one day.
So one day, but you went to Miami.
Yeah.
You continued that partnership with Fernando.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the trust that exists between the two of you, and then also how you sell in ideas to the C-suite, because let's face it, that's not always easy.
No. Yeah, I think there's a lot of trust, and the trust comes from doing great work over time, right? And I think in this business, it's a relationship business. And the best relationships are based on great work. They're not based on golf or a boat or dinners. You get to know the brand so deeply that you can actually say, you should do this, because it's on brand. It makes sense for the brand because we know the brand. And sometimes the client agrees and sometimes it doesn't agree. And sometimes even when they don't agree, they'll say, okay, I trust you. Let's do it. Let's see what happens, right?
So you were having a great time with David. You had great clients, winning for standout work year on year at Cannes Lions. Think about starting your own thing. How did that happen?
We, again, in Cannes, everything happens in Cannes.
Right. Let's set the scene. Where were you in Cannes?
I was at the Martinez, table 57.
Oh, wow. Okay.
With Gaston. And we talked very seriously about it, right? And we said, okay, let's do this. Let's just jump. Let's go.
Did anyone need persuading, or was it you're holding hands and jumping together?
I was the one persuading him.
Okay,
that's the dynamic. I dream big. He worries about the execution, and that's how it works, right? Right away, I went to GoDaddy.com and I reserved God.agency. I showed it to him. He got super worried, and and then next day we had breakfast, and I show him what I did overnight, and I basically reserved all the handles on social media, like got Sao Paulo, got Buenos Aires, got Miami, got LA, got Toronto, got Amsterdam, got London, Sydney, Singapore, Tokyo, all of them. Gaston looks at that and is like, what the is this? Like, this guy's crazy. What kind of partner is this, right?
So you start Gut.
Yeah.
I imagine you have to make some fairly significant changes to your life, and that obviously affects your family as well.
Yes.
How did they take the news once you got Gaston over the line?
Yeah, it was a beautiful family moment, right? I called my wife and my two daughters and I told them, hey, I'm leaving David and I'm starting Gut. And I'm not going to have a salary for 2 years. And we're taking a second mortgage on our house.
Sort of messages to deliver at once.
Yeah, they're like, okay. And, at first my daughters got a little worried, right? They were like, Dad, but what if it doesn't work? What if you can't get any clients? And I was like, well, I think it's going to work. If it doesn't work, I'll find a job. I'll call Ogilvy again. I don't know. And so they got worried a little bit, and then they started to help with the idea, right? Like by saying things like, Dad, let's just cancel cable. It's $200 a month. Let's just use Netflix. Or let's not go to that restaurant because it's very expensive. Let's go to another one, cheaper. They gave me full support, and that's very important. You need your family next to you because it's tough. We had an unsolicited, so we couldn't call any talent or clients for 1 year. And so we had to find new talent, new clients, self-funded. So this time was different. It was self-funded, everything. I think we had a great decision. Our first hire was our CFO. So we didn't start hiring a creative team. Our first hire was our CFO, Gise. And she's still our global CFO, right? Amazing. So she was sitting in front of me, and I would ask her everything. Gise, can I buy an espresso? And she'll tell me, yes, but single, not double. I'm like, cool. And it was great. And in that first year, we learned a lot because it was the first year that we had total freedom, right? To decide anything, even like, are we going to take this client or not? And because we had a very clear name, Gut, and we were about a brave agency for brave clients, we couldn't take any client. We had to take the right clients, right? Brave clients. So we said a lot of no's in the first year, I counted. We said 27 no's. And every no that we said, Gise would freak out, right? Like, Anselmo, you do realize that this is a business, and at some point you need to say yes, right? I'm like, yes, I realize that, but it needs to be the right yes.
Why did you say no?
For many reasons. For lack of budget or complex process, like a pitch with 12 agencies and they wouldn't tell you which ones. Or just like lack of ambition, lack of creative ambition, or we just didn't like the person, there was no chemistry, whatever reason. But usually the main reason was the fact that we felt that the client didn't want to do great work. That was the main reason.
Back then, the CFO says, Anselmo, come on, we need some clients now. You're thinking about it from a slightly different perspective. But then, to your credit, you put yourself through Harvard Business School to really understand how business truly works. Yeah. Now that you do know, still say no? No compromises?
Yeah. That was the first time that we would be full entrepreneurs, just the two of us, right? So I felt that I had to learn a little bit of, more from a business perspective. So it was a great thing to do because, I had lessons of leadership and operations and marketing and negotiation and all that. Gaston, of course, because I would leave for 3 weeks, like, just studying, right? In Boston. He was like, I don't have a partner. I have a student, complaining.
So you ride the pandemic, you've opened Gut, your first showing back at Cannes Lions, the International Festival of Creativity. What were your expectations for yourself, and ultimately, what did you walk away with?
So our first Lion, our first experience at Cannes was after the COVID, right? It was like 2 years combined. It was 2021. Yes. And so, we won our first gold, for Popeyes. And we won our first Grand Prix that year for Mercado Libre, Feed Parade. Mm-hmm. So it was amazing, because that was our first indie Grand Prix. And it felt so special. And that was our first indie gold, and it felt different and very special and more personal. So it was a weird Cannes because it was remote.
Yes.
Right? But it was beautiful because it was our first the first awards as an independent agency of something that we built from scratch.
Well, that takes us on nicely to your fourth selection. And of course, this is the work that you feel made you. You've selected something actually from 2023 and the brand Stella Artois. Tell us a little bit about that piece and what it means to you.
Yeah, Stella Artois is very meaningful for me. When I was working at Lowe, New York, we did a campaign for Stella Artois. And at that year, my second daughter was born. And her name is Stella, right? And a lot of my, ad nerd friends say, we see what you did there, right? But Stella is very special for me. And that idea is just a great idea. Basically, there are a lot of oil paintings, okay, from all the classics like Renoir, Van Gogh, that you can see a pint of beer, a glass of beer.
Yeah.
And because Stella is from 1366, we said, wait a minute, maybe some of those beer could be a Stella Artois.
First, we focused on the color of the beer and the type of glass to determine the style of the brew. In this case, a golden pigment with a Pilsner glass. Then, after establishing the painting's year and geolocation, we compared them with our original brewery brand records of current expansion and distribution to find the matches. By connecting all these variables, we could calculate that the beer being portrayed in all these paintings could, in fact, be an Artois.
And that was the idea. We did that for many, many paintings using data, and it was a Grand Prix for creative data. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of work.
And would you say that this is a piece of work that really represents what Gut is all about?
I think so, because we always say that there are two ways to come up with ideas. The first way is data-driven, gut executed. You find a powerful piece of data. Sketches was like that, like 4% of women. You find a powerful piece of data, but you execute that in a gutsy way, in an intuitive way, in a creative way. The second way is the opposite. It's gut inspired, data validated.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine that you would have to have very different specialisms within the agencies to be able to do both effectively.
Yes.
And that leads me to my next point around the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know it's a massive value and something that Gut feels very strongly about. Can you tell us why that is and what it does to your creative?
From the very beginning, we said that our mission was to become one of the most diverse, creative, and influential ad agencies in the world, right? In that order, because we think that the more diverse we are, the more creative we're going to be. And the more creative we are, the more influential we're going to be. So that's the order. So the more different backgrounds you have at the agency, the better. And that means different ages, different races, ethnicities, backgrounds, sexual orientation. It means all that, right? So we really like that, and I think that makes the work fresher, So we're always looking for more diversity. You can never be diverse enough, You can never be creative enough. It's a forever goal.
We wanted to ask you, what is the work that you want to make next or in the future? Tell us more about that.
So I'm going to use this moment, Simon, to manifest again publicly and do what I do best. Okay. I want to write a book about advertising. Okay. At least one, I have a couple of options. I already started, actually. I just need to get to it and I need to finish. And maybe it's because of my age, I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to think about legacy, and I want to share everything I know. Use it if you want, take it. This business is so hard that take all my advice. I don't care. It's very hard, and I just want to share what I've learned so far. So I'm thinking about writing a book, or books in plural. So now Now I have to deliver on it. See, that's what I do. Now
public manifestation once again.
Now I feel uncomfortable. Then now I need to deliver on the book.
What's the message that you would want them to take away from your book based on your philosophy on leadership, on creativity, on the industry in general?
one of the messages would be something that we talk a lot about, I got, which is about love is our engine. Okay. We love this business. And this is something that Gaston says a lot. It's all about love, really, if you really think about it. I feel that our industry is very cynical right now. There's a lot of cynicism, and a lot of leadership talking shit about our industry. They're just not optimistic about it, and the whole conversation about AI is going to take our jobs, which I don't agree. But we are very optimistic about life in general. Our love for the industry and for advertising is genuine. We're not faking it, You can feel it. And our clients feel it. And I think that's basically our secret. We just love this, If you're a young creative right now, starting this business, you need to ask yourself if you really love this, Don't be cynical about it, Just love this. Because if you do, everything else is easy, Everything else is a consequence of that.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
This podcast is called In the Making. Of course, we are all a work in progress. We're learning all the time, as you said, sometimes in discomfort, which can be helpful. What's the biggest learning in your career to date?
I think my biggest learning is it's about dreaming big, believing, because if you don't believe, no one else will, and then going for it, executing, right? So, dream big. And if one day it comes true, you will cry, like we did.
I think that's a great place to come to an end. Anselmo, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, being so open and transparent. I think I speak on behalf of the entire industry when I say thank you for the story. Thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you for making people believe.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks for having me. We love Cannes. As you know, Cannes is a huge story for our lives, and everything happens in Cannes. That should be a hashtag. Everything happens in Cannes.
So, since this recording, it turns out that Gut has sold a majority stake of the network to Globant. And of course, I wanted to get in touch with Anselmo immediately to ask him one very simple question. Anselmo, did you manifest this?
No, Simon, I didn't manifest this at all. Quite the opposite. I was manifesting staying indie for a long, long time. So this came out of nowhere. November last year, we got into a call with Globant, our client, and then out of nowhere, they told us, hey, by the way, we'd like to acquire you. And we were like, what? It's a bit too soon. We're having a lot of fun here. And then it took us a year of thinking hard, talking, asking questions, exploring this possibility, processing the idea. And I wasn't really sure until Cannes. And then Friday night, when I was holding the award of Independent Network of the Year and crying in front of the whole industry, at that moment, I knew that I had to do something different. That phase one of Gut was over and it was time for something different. And the question that Gaston and I got the most after Cannes was, what's next?